and welcome back to episode 125 of Talkoffamepod with your host, Kylie Martini. And I'm very excited to have on Clauson, and she's part of Philadelphia Sixers social media team and content creator. Thank you so much for coming on, Allie. I'm so happy to chat with you again.
I'm so excited. I love doing this.
Like, how did you kind of find your love for sports? Like, what made you be a sports fan?
I grew up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, which is like a very small, middle of nowhere type of area. So there weren't really the closest major sports team was Philly. And I grew up a Philly fan, but I didn't have like the opportunity to really grow up going to these games. It was more so just like watching on TV. But I have a younger brother who was in all the sports as a kid, baseball, football, basketball, all of those sports. And I was always just going to his games and practices. And I really started to notice while going to those that I really enjoyed watching them. And I also was a cheerleader my whole life. So I grew up cheering for football, basketball, wrestling, and I competed. Just growing up in that sport, you're really around a lot of different athletes and sports. So I feel like I've always just been into sports. And then when I moved to Philly for school, I kind of really found out that there was an opportunity to work in professional sports, which sounded perfect to me. And I really just kind of went for it. And here I am.
That's amazing. Like, do you live in the main Poconos, or you live kind of outside of it? Because I live about 40 minutes from the Poconos.
Oh, no way. I live in like kind of by Stroudsburg. You know where
Mm.
that is? I live like around there. Kind
Gotcha. I live in the Grand Wilkes-Barre area. So
Okay,
it's not
yeah.
too far from the Poconos type of area.
Yeah, no, that's not too far at all.
How did going to your brother's games kind of influence you, helped you kind of with the sports? Because obviously I grew up the same exact way. My brother played sports and I was always a kid that I was always interested in watching them. So I kind of wanted to ask you, what made you kind of your brother's sports kind of influence you in that way?
So I feel like one thing that I noticed is like all the other little sisters and brothers were there and like they would always, want to play on like the playground or whatever. But like I was always there watching. Like I didn't have any interest in going to play. Like I wanted to watch. Especially I remember like going to my brother's baseball games. I loved watching. And I just was naturally drawn to it. Whereas like some of the other kids wanted to like play. I didn't. I even asked my dad multiple times if I could join the team and play myself because the one like downfall of being a competitive cheerleader is that it's year round. So I never really got to experience playing any of those other sports. And I feel like that's maybe also why I was so drawn to it, just because I never got to play it.
Mhm.
I always wanted to do other sports. I just wasn't able to. So I feel like that also definitely impacted how interested I was in them.
I was kind of the same exact way. Like I played baseball, but then I quit after a couple of years. But then it's just something that I missed it. Like some type of something inside me that made me miss it. And I always asked my dad because he was always a coach of my brother's team, every single time. And I remember being like, "Can I go in the dugout? Like, can I go sit in the
Yeah.
dugout
My
or
dad was
something
also
to
the
be
coach.
involved?" But
So
then
like,
he'll be like, "No, you're
yeah.
not going in the dugout. Like it's just something you just wish you'd done more about it."
Yeah. And my dad also coached like all my brother's teams. So I feel like that too, having just like my dad and brother be so involved in sports. And then, like I said, I was grown up to be a Philly sports fan from the time I came out of the womb. So,
Yeah, that's how I was. My family is the biggest Phillies fan of all time. Like
really,
literally, my family basically went all the World Series games or went to every single series the
really, wow, I'm
2022.
jealous. I'm very jealous. I wish I was there.
And I'm like, that's how crazy they are. Like it's
Yeah.
just so bad. Like once I came out of the womb, came out a Phillies fan. Even though I'm not a Phillies fan, it's just
I was gonna
always in
say, I see
my
all the
my
Dodgers
blood.
stuff.
It's always if you are in the Philly area, you're outside of Philly, you have to be a Phillies fan.
Pretty much.
And you got a job previously in for the 76ers as a content and social media fellow. What was kind of the process of landing that job to work for the 76ers?
Yeah. I just graduated college last May, almost a year ago. That's kind of crazy. But I graduated with in May of 2022, and I didn't have like a job lined up or anything, and I was feeling very like discouraged because I knew a lot of people around me who had jobs lined up and I just didn't, and I wasn't having a lot of interviews, like people weren't responding to me, and I thought, I did everything right during college. I had internships with like other sports teams and I really like tried to prepare myself well. So the whole process after I first graduated was kind of rough and it really sucked for a while. I won't lie. But I continued to apply. And then I saw that the Sixers put up this fellowship program that they were having. And it kind of just seemed like the perfect next step between graduating and getting like a permanent full-time job in the industry. So I applied for the social media position that I'm in today. And I first had like an online interview where it was just me and like a screen and I had to like answer questions and record myself. And then after that, I had 3 more interviews with different people who now are my bosses. Um, and like just when I was interviewing, it was so great. I love them. They're great people to work for. So it made me want the job instantly. And I remember literally like praying. I was like, please let me get this job. And then I did. So it's been nothing but a great
Mm-hmm.
experience.
That's amazing. Like how long was like the total process take? Like was it like a couple of days or was it like lasted a couple of weeks? Or
So I applied probably early June or late May, and I started with them at the end of June, like the last couple days. So it was like a month, I'd say, the process of just
Yeah,
kind
again, yeah. Like I'm just like I have an interview with a sports team later on today, so I'm kind of curious on what like
of,
the
that's so
process would kind of be.
exciting. Good luck.
Thank you. And like during like your junior year of college, you basically got an email from Temple about the new sports media certificate being offered to client students, which kind of like you kind of said earlier. Like how did kind of that email impact like kind of your journey in love for sports and
Yeah, that email honestly changed everything for me. I never knew about working in sports in the ways that are possible. Like I said, coming from a small town, I always just thought it was like, you can be a reporter, a coach, or an athlete. I mean, obviously I knew there were more positions, but like I never really thought of it as like a huge industry with all these possibilities.
mm-hmm,
So before my junior year, I knew I wanted to work in media of some sort. I just didn't know where I belonged in that. And I
mm-hmm,
had an internship my sophomore year in social media, but I absolutely hated it. It was like a 9 to 5 desk job, and I was miserable. I was like, this is not for me. I'm very hands on. I'm very personable. I need interaction and action, and I need to do
mm-hmm,
stuff. Um, so then COVID hit, and I was so lost. I didn't know where I was going with my life. I was struggling. And then mid junior year, it's still COVID. I'm all online. I got an email from Klein, like you mentioned, about a sports media certificate. And I'm like, sports media, like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. So I did some research on it and I found all these jobs. And I was like, well, of course, like somebody has to run these social media pages. And this is also kind of when like TikTok was just taking off and like being like a serious platform for
mm-hmm,
brands and organizations to use. So just like the timing of everything was really good. And I was like, yeah, I want to do this. Like, I think that's where I could see myself in media. And from there, I was already halfway through my second semester of junior year. I was like, I'm going to need to like work my butt off if I want to get there because it's a very competitive industry. So
mm-hmm,
that's kind of exactly what I did. I had an internship that summer with a minor league baseball team. And then I worked for the Phillies my fall semester. And then I worked for the Flyers my last semester. So the remainder of college after I got that email, I was having an internship in sports. And I think that really set me up for success after I graduated, especially since I kind of found out so late that I wanted to work in the sports industry.
mm-hmm.
So if I wouldn't have gotten that email, I really don't know where I would be right now, to be honest with you. So
That's crazy. Like that's like growing up, I knew the same exact way you did. I wanted to be in media in some type of way. Like I grew up a sports fan. I come from a sporty family, as we kind of talked about a little earlier. And like, I didn't know what I wanted to be. Like, I'm sure people always say, like, you kind of don't really know what you want to do until you go to college. Like,
Mhm.
it's okay to not know what you want to do when you go to college. Like,
Right.
that's something I kind of thought. Like, I'm kind of like always a person I was like, I need to know why I'm going to college. Like, I don't want to seem like a little like an idiot. You know what I mean?
I mean, I went in undecided too, and I hated that. Like when everyone was like, "Oh, what's your major?" I was like, I couldn't tell you because I don't have one. So like I get
Mhm.
that. Um, but yeah, going in undecided was the best thing for me because I didn't waste any time taking classes that would hold me back. So I always tell people if you don't know, just go in undecided. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's really nothing wrong with that. Like going undecided, like you're like really like the passion of college is really finding your place and finding what you want to be. Like it's okay to not know what you want to do. If you want to have an idea, look over courses and see like see what's good for you. Like it's okay to really not know what you want to do in life.
100%. I agree with you.
And as like you said before, you worked for the Phillies, Flyers, and Iron Pigs. Like what like are the biggest kind of lessons you learned from like kind of those opportunities?
So I would say for my Iron Pigs internship, that was my first experience in the sports industry. And I was literally thrown all over. I did everything at that internship, which was the perfect intro to the industry. It really taught me things that interest me and things that didn't. So like I got to oversee and like basically each game I was a different intern. One game I was with ticket sales, one game I was with the promotions team, one day I was with literally concessions. Like I got to see every aspect of working in sports, specifically baseball. So it was the perfect intro. And I think that was like my biggest lesson that like I knew I was in the right space. Um, so then when I went to the Phillies, I knew that I was going to be a ticket sales rep, and I knew that I didn't want to do ticket sales the rest of my life. I knew that going into it. Um, but I knew the experiences I was going to get there would be so valuable for me, and again help with networking, and ticket sales is like the foundation of sports. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it would look good on my resume, so I was willing to take it, and I did learn a lot. It was really good to learn how tickets are sold, why, like different deals, and just dealing with customer service. Like that was a huge thing. And then the Flyers, I was in corporate partnerships, which was kind of my major mixed with sports. My major in
Mm-hmm.
college was advertising, and that was basically all I did at the Flyers. And I was definitely kind of getting closer to where I wanted to be in the industry. I did a lot of like photo taking for them, just to like kind of prove that advertisements were running when they were supposed to, things like that. And I really enjoyed the internship there, and I really enjoyed working in hockey. That was something I didn't ever think I'd be doing in my life. Um, but yeah, and that was super important for my role now in social media because corporate partnerships and social work hand in hand for all sponsored content. So, and sponsored content is the majority of what any social team posts for a sports team. So, it's really, really good now to know both sides of social and then corporate partnerships. And my boss, I think when she interviewed me, that was one thing she really liked, is that I knew a lot about corporate partnerships and sponsored content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like were you like with the Flyers? Like were you like a hockey fan or anything like that? Or you just like baseball or football?
So I grew up watching hockey sometimes with my dad. I just remember on the couch, like, and I was never really super into it. I was just like, oh, it's like kind of cool, whatever, they're ice skating. Then anytime a fight would break out, though, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And I remember watching shootouts as a kid and being like, my anxiety, I can't take this. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I got the job there, I'd never been to a hockey game. Um, I had no idea what I was getting into. And then the minute I worked my first game, I was obsessed. To say I love it. It's, I think, the best sport to watch live. And I'm a big football fan, baseball fan, basketball fan. So, but hockey is definitely one of the best sports to watch live, 100%.
And like, did you see that LeBron James like set the record yesterday?
I did. That is so impressive. Congratulations to him. That's iconic. He's a legend.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And like I wanted to like ask you with your experience in sports, like you have kind of built some communities with women's sports all across assets with people in hockey, basketball, etc. Like why do you think it's so important to kind of build connections in sports industry and this any other industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I mentioned, I had no idea that this existed, these opportunities. So when I was getting into it, I remember I didn't have like a mentor. I didn't have somebody to talk to or try to, I just didn't have any connections. And it was a lot to go through and learn all this and try to, get jobs by yourself. Like it's really, especially as a woman in the industry, it is harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to show people like that they're like this exists. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I didn't know, and I think now so many people are fascinated by careers in sports because it is so different. So I just knew that when I started posting content about my jobs and stuff, that like I wanted to one spread awareness to show that one anyone can do it, two it is out there, it's a thing, and three like to be able to be like, oh, I want to be like her, how do I get there, and be able to help people get there since I didn't have that experience. I want people to ask me for advice, do podcasts, things like this. Like I want to help people in any way that I can because I know, especially being in college, there I didn't have like the normal college experience by any means. So like it was really hard for me to figure out what I wanted to do. And no one should have to go through that alone. So my goal with, the group me and just posting my content that I make is just all about not having to go through it alone and asking questions, getting advice, making connections and networking, stuff like that.
Like with like having a mentor, it's so important to have one so like you know what to do like in industry, know how to like basically know where to go. Like why do you think having a mentor is so important to where you want to go?
I think in sports too, a lot of it is who you know. Um, and just where you live, obviously that's important. So I feel like I said, growing up in a small town, not knowing any of this, not having a mentor, I think did set me back. I mean, if I would have known this was a possibility in high school, I think I would have started doing things in high school
Mm-hmm.
regarding this, but I didn't. So I think having a mentor can really help open up different doors for you because whoever they know, they can, try to help you out in that way. I think too, it's just good to ask for advice. Like, I mean, post grad, post grad for me was very hard at first before I got my job. I was so upset. I just felt so defeated. And all my friends really had jobs or had something lined up and I didn't. And it was really hard. It was really hard
Mm-hmm.
feeling to feel like a failure because I was like, I did all these internships and I worked for cool teams. Like, why do I not have a job? So not having anybody to kind of go through that with was hard for me. So I just want to make sure that people don't have to go through that in while they're in college or after. I mean, it's a journey and there's no timeline. Everyone's journey will be different. So that's just something I had to learn on my own. And I just want to make sure people don't have to go through it alone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like with being living in Pennsylvania, it's so hard to find mentors, especially in sports. Like it's literally so hard to find mentors because like when people want to be in sports, like with sports, it's such a male dominated industry. Like
Mhm.
there's more like male people working in sports than women. And that's really the hardest part about it is like there's so many women in sports but then, like, it's so hard to find mentors in sports either way.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I always encourage people who do follow me to message me. And, I'll always try to set up a time to get on Zoom and just talk, or if they have questions or need advice. I also have a group me chat. And now I just recently made a Geneva group, um, just where if people don't want to get on a video camera or they just have a quick question and you just need advice real quick, like, hey, I have an interview tomorrow, like any tips, like stuff like that, and not just me because I don't know everything. I don't work every role in sports, so It's just bringing a bunch of people together who know a lot and want to learn a lot and just connecting them all. So, because like there were people in ticket sales. I can't speak on that. I don't work in ticket sales, or like
Mhm.
personal training or like athletic trainers. I don't know any of that. So it's just a good way to bring everyone together and say, this is what I'm interested in. Like, how do I get there? Can anyone help me? And it's hard to be vulnerable and do that sometimes, but the amount of women who have come to me and just asked for help or connections, it's been mind blowing since I started posting on TikTok. I've done so many different things, interviews and podcasts, and it's been so great to see so many people interested in the industry and just wanting to get involved. So I think it's definitely making an impact, which is really all I cared about.
Mhm.
So I'm happy with it, and I'm happy with what I'm doing and what other women creators are also doing in the industry.
And like I want to like as like a woman in sports, like what are kind of some cons of being a woman in sports?
I mean, obviously, like being a woman in sports, you're not the majority. Men dominate the sport, especially, I mean, working for a men's sport. I mean, it has some cons. There's some stereotypes that people will associate. And I mean, I still get comments all the time on my TikToks that I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know
Mhm.
sports. I don't watch sports. I only watch playoff games. Like all the comments that I've asked to name 5 players on the Eagles as if I don't know the entire lineup. Like it's
Mhm.
just things like that. And it's just like that men don't have to deal with. And being questioned doesn't bother me because I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about. But like it's just things like that that suck sometimes to deal with when you work so hard to get somewhere and you're still being questioned constantly. Or also another downfall is just like sometimes that, you know, you aren't considered for certain things because you are a woman. And I don't know, I applied for a job once and I truly believe I didn't get it because I was a woman, because the questions I were asked in the interview were just not anything to do with the job and very weird and about me, being a girl around young players. And it's just things like that that a man would not be getting questioned in an interview, getting those questions. So I
Mhm.
think things like that. But there's also so many supportive people in the industry. I've met so many great guys who have been nothing but supportive. I have a really good friend I made on TikTok. His name's Keegan. He is a little younger than me, but he's been such an advocate for women in sports, especially for me. He's been great. So there are good people out there. Obviously, not everyone wants to see you fail. So it's truly just about like surrounding yourself with people who want to see you win.
Exactly. Like I like what you said before. Like when people question like with women's sports, like when they say oh you only watch for the players, or you just say like oh you're just watching playoff games, or just do whatever. Like or say can you name at least 5 players? Like if for me, I can name all like 5 Dodger players or Philly players in my head, like in like just seconds. Like I can just name everything. But then like if you were in the sports industry and they question you, then like why would you be in the sports industry in the first place if you didn't like what you do, or you're just trying to be players? Like that's not the point of it.
Exactly. And I just my question to people like that is always, why are girls not allowed to like sports? Like why is it controversial? I don't understand it, why it even is a thing. It's entertainment. It's an entertainment industry for anybody. And that's like I think a lot of teams are hopping in on the like hockey is for everybody. It's a great initiative. And it truly is. It's something to watch because you like it and enjoy it. And I've never understood why people have to question that. So that's probably just the biggest con in my opinion. But the
Mm-hmm.
pros definitely outweigh the cons. And I just tell people I know what I'm doing. I love sports. If you don't agree, you don't have to watch my content. So
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
kind of how I see it at this point.
And like I want, and the final question that I basically have for you is like, what is some advice for people that kind of want to work in sports, like that are just kind of starting out?
Yeah, I would say definitely network and prioritize getting internships while you're in college. Because truly, like your major is not nearly as important as the experiences you get, and the younger you start, the better. Also, just like don't be afraid to reach out to people. I've reached out to many people. I got ignored many times. People are busy, I get it, but like I said, I hope people reach out to me. I would love to serve as a mentor to people who I can help, or and if there's any way that I can help anybody, I always try to. So just things like that, like reaching out, like really trying to get involved in whatever sport or industry you want to get into. Um, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help or asking for advice. And that's something I also think I kind of struggled with, is just like being able to be like, oh, it's okay to ask, like, for, like an interview tip, or if so and so knows a person here, things like that. Like, people aren't going to be mad at you for asking for help or questions. So just take advantage of that.
Exactly. And like I just want to thank you so much for joining the podcast. I love chatting with you again. It's been such a long time. It
I know.
seems.
I'm so glad we got to reconnect.
Me too. And just thank you so much for joining and taking some time. I really appreciate it. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for everyone for listening, and see everyone next episode. Thanks so much for coming out, Allie.
Thank you.
Mhm.